Can you even imagine that? You open your door in your own apartment building after texting some dude, and he's like just like standing there in the hallway like it's a scene in The Shining. Do you guys remember Moms for Liberty, Planned Parenthood? The right-wing organization that started not too many years ago that has been surging recently among the right and in school boards, that has been some of the forefront of the movement to change the culture and add more traditional right-wing values to schools, taking away things like black education and gender inequity and diversity movements, mainly controlled by older, whiter, weirder, richer, worse people in the country to push their own agenda, where schooling should be first. We're instilling values about things like diversity, inclusion, teamwork, things along those lines, and not things like their own personal religious beliefs that they would like to instill around the country. Fresh off the heels of having a absolutely mind-boggling, hilarious defeat in the last election cycle, where they lost tens of seats. Tens of seats. I think about 100, if not more, across the entire country. And even in Loudoun County, the epicenter of the right-wing conservative media and culture war movement that they've been waging since at least 2016, that the epicenter is where they completely lost almost all of their members. And in Iowa, they lost 12 of the 13 candidates that they put up. In other states, they completely lost their seats. There was almost no place in the entire country where they were able to gain seats, even though that in 2022, they raised $2 million. Moms for Liberty is a group of conservative moms, women, men, just people in general, usually headed up by women, specifically for pushing more traditional conservative values. They're against things like abortion. They're against things like teaching things like evolution. They push vehemently to stop schools from recognizing pride. They're one of the main culprits for the trans bathroom bans in municipalities, all these types of things. If you see something bad happening in many of these states, Moms for Liberty is usually not too far behind. And you don't even have to be necessarily a signed on member to be somebody who works for Moms for Liberty. In many instances, they have people who specifically work for them, but instead of actually necessarily being a part of Moms for Liberty, what they do is they sign pledges for Moms for Liberty, or they work with people with Moms for Liberty, and they work adjacent to that. Like this person, the other day I had the privilege of signing the Moms for Liberty Parent Pledge. I want to maximize parental involvement in education. I hope that more and more parents get involved in our district. It's Moms for Liberty, the same Moms for Liberty that recently had their members quote Adolf Hitler specifically in their charter and in their and on their website, that the Moms for Liberty heads specifically said that they stand by.
I don't know what to say to you. There is always a bridge. There's always a reason. There's always a reason why something happens. Right? Yes. One of our moms in a newsletter quotes Hitler. Woo! I stand with that mom.
One of our members quoted Hitler. I stand with that mom. Well, I stand against Moms for Liberty, and many people around the country do as well. For their sick Christian nationalism, for their disgusting racism. Moms for Liberty was one of the organizations that specifically was pushing against teaching black education in Florida. They have a large presence in Florida. A lot of the reason is because of DeSantis and his administration specifically pushing Moms for Liberty. We'll talk about that soon. He has the chairwoman for Moms for Liberty, one of the co-founders working in his administration at this moment, specifically because he likes the work that they're doing and he wants to push them artificially by having them be in larger and larger political positions so they have more and more power over human beings unelected Mind you, the same unelected bureaucrats that conservatives are going to rail against constantly, but unless it's their unelected bureaucrats, then those are actually great, and we want them making all of the decisions for your life, but just not in the other way around, because the left is too stinky to be able to allow to do that type of stuff. Many of the members do incredibly terrible things, like featuring speakers at the Joyful Warrior Summit included Catherine Gorka, an anti-Muslim activist who advocated for shutting down radical mosques in the U.S., and North Carolina Lieutenant Governor Mark Robson, who believes teaching children about sexual orientation and gender ideology is child abuse, and that homosexuality is filth, and that transgender rights movement is demonic and full of the Antichrist spirit. And Chris Ann Hall, who compared the U.S. Capitol Police to Nazis and SS troops, and claimed that the government of the United States has no authority outside the permission of the sheriff and just as much federal power as France or Texas within your state, which makes literally no sense. The federal government's role in your state is actually a lot. They literally control interstate commerce. That's literally in the Constitution, but whatever, I guess. And we're just going to make shit up. We're just going to make shit up constantly. And once again, one of the chairs for Moms for Liberty, Christian Ziegler, remember that name, we're going to be talking about him in a bit, the chair of the Florida's Republican Party, questioned the decision of the chapter to leaders to apologize for quoting Hitler and said that the media is not your friend. Never apologize. Apologizing makes you weak. Right? And this is something that a lot of the people who work for Moms for Liberty actually take to heart. One thing that I want to talk about really quick, specifically, is women. We talk a lot about women's rights. It's time, once again, unfortunately, I hate to do it, but to talk about women's many wrongs. A lot of people kind of don't understand the idea of women being a part of these movements. And I want to talk about that really quick because there's a long and sordid history of women working for far right movements that work against their own interests. I mean, recently there's like the alt-right movement, the neo-Nazi movement, the Christian nationalist movement, the patriotic movement, all these types of movements that very much work to the detriment of women in many areas are headed up by and have a lot of women actually working for them. One of the big things that conservatives are doing right now, the GOP is trying to get as many women in office as possible to try to change their look of being an anti-women party that they'll always will be, at least the modern iteration of the Republican Party. But this isn't something that's super new. Daughters of the Confederacy is something that we know of and many people in the South may have heard of, and unfortunately many people haven't. Daughters of the Confederacy is specifically a group of women who came together to try to change history, and in many ways were successful by changing the idea of the Civil War to be more palatable to Confederates in many states across the country. And some of the big reasons and some of the big talking points that you hear, like against the shift in the parties, the swap in the parties, against when the statues go up, how important those statues are. A lot of the statues that you see of Lee and other conservative generals and Confederate soldiers and Confederate statues were not put up during the Civil War, or honestly, a lot of the times anywhere near the Civil War. A lot of them were put up in the mid-1900s by the people like the Daughters of the Confederacy, who worked very closely with the KKK, who also had a large following, and even of women as well. There was a large party, Women for Hitler, in Germany. And in England, actually, something that's super interesting is that many suffragettes actually turned, when they were done with the suffragette movement, turned to far right and neo-Nazi movements in the country. There's also like Moms Against Desegregation as well. There's so many movements out there with women heading them, and the question is why? Well, a lot of women have a lot of different reasons. Obviously, one of the big reasons we want to get out of the way at the moment is, like, you can say brainwashing is how they grew up. and having those values instilled to them of them being lesser, them needing to following their husbands. And that leads into the next point, which is that a lot of them just follow their husbands. A lot of them are people who believe that they just, I mean, you see this a lot with a lot of conservative women, how they're like, I don't know what to do with politics. I don't know about this whole politics thing, so I'm just gonna not think about it. Is that, have you seen that tweet where it's that Discord daddy and his kitten, and she's like, babe, what's happening in the Middle East? And he goes, don't worry about it, sweetie. And she goes, okay, yay. Right? And that's basically how a lot of those women want to live their life. They just go, okay, yay, and just listen to whatever their husband has to say about these issues, because they just think that their role in that situation is simply to follow. So they just support them and head them up no matter what neo-Nazi movement that they want to be a part of. But a lot of these women are in there for their own volition, and those other reasons are just a secondary or tertiary reason to why they're really there, which is for their own interest. They have their own interest in being there. And you may wonder what that is, since a lot of those movements are anti-women, or have like anti-women's rights. Now, there are a lot of reasons why you could, but it gives, one of the big reasons that it gives purpose, it gives community, it gives family. Why do these men join a lot of these organizations? And now we can talk about how it holds up their status in patriarchy, but at the end of the day, a lot of the reasons for why they join doesn't really have anything to do, well, specifically to do with patriarchy. It has more of something to do with giving them something to do, giving them a higher purpose, and giving them an action that they can feed onto, and it feeds into their insecurities a lot of the time. How a lot of these movements get women in is by changing the rhetoric to be able to be more palatable to women. That's why you hear a lot of these people talk recently about like the family and society and the family and children and women's role in it. It's like giving them a role to play. It's giving them a reason to be around. It's giving them a higher purpose to work for. It's giving them the idea that they're serving God by serving their children as well, by saving the children from these evil, nasty, disgusting leftist freaks who wish to tear apart the nuclear family and cut off your boy's penis and then sew it onto your baby girl's like belly button, and because she's belly button penis gender, right? And that's the stuff that they genuinely believe, and that's the stuff that they genuinely push for, and that's what. That's how it is. And we talk about this a lot of the time as well. We've mentioned this when it comes to a lot of people and how they identify. People usually want to identify with the identity that gives them the most amount of power, right? And so for a lot of men, no matter, especially if they're not white, the identity that they identify with the most is being a man, because you can feed into patriarchy and you'll have power through being a man in society. When you are white and you're a man, you can pick, depending on the situation, you can switch and swap. Now, sometimes it's a man, sometimes it's being white, and obviously it's the intersection of being a white man that you can get a lot of power through that as well. When it comes to women, in a lot of these spaces, women aren't necessarily held up that high, but they are given a place. They are given a section in the movement, a very specific section that is made that they say is tailor-made for them, that only them and their very specific set of skills that women have, that men don't have, that makes them a valuable and essential part of the movement. And that is usually through talking, giving a nice face to movements, and those movements, still usually predominantly headed up by men, are able to use that to be able to soften their image by using women to soften it, by using women to soften a lot of those edges that come with it that make it more harsh to people and makes them more palatable to your average person. It's the same reason why Nazis went from the skinhead tattoo, like skinhead swastika tattoo, crazy biker gang running around with like the chains hitting people in the back of the head and shit like that, right? To the prim and proper, I got a suit, and you have like the undercut and the swoop back hair and the talking all nice. Even none of them have ever even attempted to go to college, and a lot of them even tried to drop out of high school as well. All they know is their 4chan Nazi talking points, and that's basically it. But it's way more palatable than being like a slur screeching madman. They are still mad, and especially if you give them the opportunity to show who they are, they're going to show you exactly who they are, like Richard Spencer's infamous rant after Charlottesville of him screeching and moaning and crying over the fact that people don't respect him for getting a haircut. and wearing a suit. Him being a neo-Nazi is still worse than that, right? But that's the role that a lot of women play in these movements, and they love that because people love playing roles. People still love their gender at the end of the day. And if you play into that, I don't have to tell a group of people who many of them have, different gender identities, have gone through different gender, I don't want to say gender crises, but sometimes you can call it that. Sometimes maybe not, who have gone through different issues with gender. I don't need to tell you that gender is important, right? It's a part of your being. It's how people identify you. It's how people talk to you as a human being. It's very important for who you are. And if you can get into that, if you can play into that, you can weave your ideology into that, you can weave your mind into their life and then control them like a puppet from there. And that's what's happened to a lot of these women. They buy into this, and yes, even some of their rights get taken away, but they have a very specific role to play where they may not want those rights, or they think that those rights won't benefit them as much as they think, or they don't think those rights are going to be taken away at all, or they still agree with it, but they don't like the whole being mean to women thing, right? Even when it comes to the suffragettes in Britain that turned into Nazis, the role that those women played, they were very smart when it comes to the ideology that they turned to those girls, is that they gave them a role of making tea for the guys when they come back and being the caretakers and everything. But they weren't just the caretakers. They were also bouncers. They taught them jujitsu as well to be able to take down left-wing suffragettes or protesters or things along those lines. They gave them a very specific role to play. And once you feel like you're important to a movement, then you become way more connected to it. And it's harder for you to let those types of things go. And so that's a big reason for why a lot of these women are a part of these movements. And it's very important to understand that because they feel very connected. And it's important to understand that when it comes to wanting to deprogram some of these people, their identity is wrapped up into this. Being a mom, for a lot of these people, even if they aren't moms necessarily, the idea of motherhood, the idea of that life-giving role in society, that motherly love, that type of feminine touch that they've been told only they can give, is something that they hold dearly to them, as dearly as any other person would hold as a part of their being. And so it's hard to pull them from that. It's possible, but you're going to have to talk to somebody individually for that type of stuff. But I've rambled long enough for this. I want to talk about some of the things that Mom for Liberty has been a part of recently. And this is why, right? And this is why their 285 chapters and over 100,000 members in 45 states has been able to be so popular and grow so wide. They've been able to launch off of social media, and conservative politicians are now way more connected into social media than they ever have been before, meaning that now they're able to have access to politicians. It's a reason why Chaya, right, the owner of a TikTok-based Twitter account, was able to be invited into the governor's mansion in Florida and have personal protection from several governors and several Republican governors in several different states just because she posts on Twitter sometime. That's why these types of people are able to get so big. They're also connected, and also so connected to dark money. Media Matters had a great article about this. We can't go over this at the moment, but they're very highly connected to QAnon. They're highly connected to the Trump movement. They're highly connected to the far right movement as well. The Christian nationalist movement, wanting to shut down immigration, and all these ideas about corrupting the family as well play into all of this type of stuff. And they have big money from big donors from states as well that specifically give them the opportunity to run the way that they want. They're able to get invited into different halls of Congress and speak to different delegates specifically because of their connections and the money that they have, because there's a movement going on specifically of conservatives to take the power that they have and expand it everywhere and anywhere to control your life, whether you like it or not. And obviously most people don't. That's why a lot of these people lose constantly, but that's why then they upgrade them to bureaucratic positions like they did in Florida. We'll talk about that in a moment. They recently even kicked out the first ever black superintendent for a district, specifically because they didn't like the way that she was talking about Moms for Liberty. The entire Moms for Liberty controlled Indiana school board just forced out the first ever black district in the state. Forced off the first ever black superintendent in the state. for not liking Moms for Liberty enough. This is what these people are. And if that's not cancel culture, then what is? Well, I'll tell you what it's not. This man being canceled, specifically one of the large Moms for Liberty, not a mom, a man actually, one of the large Moms for Liberty leaders being outed as a convicted PDF for harming a 14-year-old in 2011 as well. Moms for Liberty chairleader in Pennsylvania. Moms for Liberty is a conservative parental rights group. That's a very curious way to say neo-Nazi group that has chapters all over the United States working to eradicate LGBTQ-related discussions in public schools, at least partially under the belief that educators are going to be grooming kids into sexual relationships by telling them that they shouldn't be killed for being gay. The Philadelphia Inquirer reported on Monday that Philip Fisher Jr., a pastor, not a drag queen, just so you know, Republican ward leader and faith coordinator for Moms for Liberty in Philadelphia, is a registered child harming offender. Fisher was convicted in 2012 for aggravated abuse of a 14-year-old boy, with a charging document saying that Fisher, then 25, engaged in oral and listen, I don't have to read off all of this. You get it, right? He did bad things to that kid. Very, very bad things. Very bad things. Fisher, who pleaded guilty, told the Inquirer that the conviction was a railroad job by a PAC affiliated with Lyndon LaRoche, a culty former presidential candidate whose organization Fisher worked for at the time. It was a political situation that happened between me and Lyndon LaRoche. He said it was a member of his camp, his party, that made the accusation. They pushed it through. So basically, he's saying that, listen, yeah, I was convicted for harming a child, but like it was a hit job. It was a political hit job. It was a political hit. They set me up with a 12. They set me up with a 12-year-old. Come on, with a 14-year-old. I'm sorry. Come on, man. Listen, he told me he was 18. He told me he was 18, okay? Who the fuck is 18 in middle school? See you in court. Railroad is definitely a word choice. It really is. It really is. And many people would end the conversation about this here when it comes to Moms for Liberty being okay with these types of people being these types of people who even deny their convictions with evidence of them committing crimes against children in the organization supposedly made to defend children and the family. Unless you just don't do background checks on people, which I would say you should definitely start doing that if this is the people who are getting through to the top of your list. Or maybe you just think that he's a pastor, so he couldn't have done anything wrong, I guess. Right? I'm just saying you should check him. A lot of the times the situation would end here, where I go on a little rant about how these people are terrible and a lot of conservatives have horrible views on children and sex ed, and how sex ed is very important for children to be able to identify when they're being abused, and conservatives don't want to do that, and they don't want to stop child marriages, and they don't want to raise the age of consent in many states where it's pretty young, and they don't want to do a lot of things that I would imagine, which we know have definitive proof of reducing the likelihood of children being abused. And let me tell you, it has nothing to do with gay people and nothing to do with transgender people or drag queens. But this actually goes on, and I'm not going to say it gets worse, but very much gets more scary the more it goes on. Remember how I talked about how Florida is a large hotspot for Moms for Liberty? Apparently, it's also a large hotspot for crimes. Because recently, Moms for Liberty has been accused, Moms for Liberty leaders, the power couple, Bridget Ziegler and her husband, Christian Ziegler, two of the co-founders of Moms for Liberty, have been accused of doing some terrible, horrible, awful things to people. And we got to talk about it, because let me tell you, this is bad. And we're going to start off here, okay? Brace yourself. The wife is gay. She's bisexual. There you go. That's the information. I'm joking. I'm not joking about her being bi. That's true. She do love fucking women, but that's not. Which is a bit funny because she specifically is at the helm of an anti-gay organization looking to push gay people out of teaching roles and discussions of gay children and the struggles that they go through when it comes to coming out and stuff. They're like bi. She fucks girls. Whether you want to call that gay, bi, she be having the coitus with the cootie havers, girls. Wouldn't it be ironic if the woman who led an ultra-conservative movement in Florida education sought to put gays back in the closet was having a long-term 3-way lesbian relationship with a lover she started with her husband, the state's GOP chairman? I do think that would be pretty ironic. So basically, let me explain to you what happened. For years, Bridget and Christian were swingers. Okay, they go places, they swap cooties, they do all of this type of stuff. All right, and one of the big things that they like are 3-ways. We don't have concrete information that they've done this a lot before, but we have confirmation that they've done it at least once. All right, this is something that they do like doing, and then they would like to continue doing, since there are multiple situations of them propositioning people to do this type of stuff. All right, a tale as old as time. Yes, the anti-gay conservative in their spare time is actually hawking pussy or cock and crazy stuff, or like Lindsey Graham hawking trans girl penis, which is, Godspeed. Just stop being transphobic. That's all I ask. In many ways, it's too much to ask from them. So very, very interesting stuff right there, right? She had gay thoughts. The gay thoughts won. Unfortunately for her, the gay thoughts did win. But that's not the worst thing here. Okay, the plot thickens, and boy do it get thick. There was one woman that they specifically had a threesome with once before, about a year prior to these revelations coming to the surface at the moment. All right. So basically what happened is that they had a threesome with this lady. She mostly liked messing with the wife. I don't know if it was one of those things where it was a cuck situation, but a girl cuck situation where he pulled up the sneako chair and was sitting right beside the bed while they were getting busy, while they were getting down and dirty, while they were sloshing the sauce, and he was just giving a peek. I don't know exactly what was happening, but they said specifically that she was mostly there for his wife. All right. He was mostly there for his wife, and he was pretty fine with it. At least that's what we thought. Fast forward to not too long ago, they tried to set up another situation with this girl again to be able to do what they did previously, and after some talking, she agreed. Now, here's where things get a little spicy, okay? What happened after that is that after their planned fuck session came about, the timing for it to happen came about, Christian Ziegler's wife backed out. She was busy, she was tired, her back hurt, she had to attempt to lynch a black person or something. She was just really busy with some stuff that was going on. And so she couldn't come to the annual fuck session, right? And when Christian Ziegler told the girl, she was like, I'm good. I don't really fuck with you like that. And I'm telling you now, minutes after she sent that tweet to this man, he fucking appeared like Slenderman outside of her door. And it goes after that he then assaulted this poor woman after she was trying to leave to walk her dog after he made his way into her house. He exploded. Yeah. Let me see if I can pull this for you. Christian Ziegler, according to a very heavily redacted Sarasota police report released to the media on Thursday after the Florida Trident, a watchdog news outlet, broke the story, is under an active criminal investigation. He's accused of going to a woman's house without Bridget on October 2nd and assaulting the woman in question, according to police and media reports citing the law enforcement sources. His wife is not facing any charges. In the context of the investigation, the woman revealed to the police, who initially responded to the investigation detective, who responded and the investigating detective, her long-running three-way sex life with the couple. Christian Ziegler's lawyer vehemently denied the charges and made against the brash party boss, who vowed earlier this year, until we get every Democrat out of office everywhere, we're never going to stop moving forward in Florida. But I guess the anti-Democrat train stops here when it comes to assaulting women. Very curious. Very terrible things going on in Florida right now. Not surprising. Not surprising. Forward. Yeah, we're going forward. And by that, they mean incredibly backwards. Super backwards, even. Let's read a little bit more into these details. And so if you're wondering if there are any details about this, the woman, after the alleged incident, did not show up to work. She was said by her friends that she appeared drunk when they tried to reach out to her when she wasn't acting herself. She then talked to the police afterwards and gave her report, and even signed an affidavit to the police, which gave them the ability to a judge, after presenting it to a judge, to get a warrant on Christian Ziegler. This is serious. These aren't just accusations that are out there. These are serious accusations with real evidence behind them and a pattern of behavior from the alleged victim that is in line with what happens when people get assaulted. Let's read a little bit more into this. The woman accusing the Florida GOP chairman, and just so you know, this is the Florida GOP chairman. Not only is he married to one of the co-founders of Moms for Liberty, but he also is the chairman for the Florida GOP. This guy is supposed to be the guy guiding Florida's Republican Party through the 2024 election cycle, when two Floridians are going to be on the ballot, at least unless DeSantis drops out, which is very possible here. DeSantis and Trump. She told police that she had planned to have sex with him and his wife, Moms for Liberty co-founder Bridget Ziegler, but called it off when Bridget couldn't make it, according to the newly released search warrant affidavit. The woman, who claimed to have known the couple for 20 years in a message detailed in the warrant, told Sarasota police that she was sexually involved one time over a year ago with Ziegler and his wife, a Sarasota school board member who helped start the conservative organization Moms for Liberty. The search warrant affidavit offers the most detailed public account yet of the incident, which has roiled Florida GOP leadership led by Ziegler. The document shared with the Miami Herald and the Florida Center for the Government of Accountability, which uncovered the assault allegations. The victim said that she had agreed to have a second sexual encounter with a couple on the 2nd of October, according to the affidavit, which was first reported by the Orlando Sentinel. But when the wife wasn't able to make it, the woman told the investigator that she canceled the plans, texting Ziegler that she was mostly in it for his wife. This girl, I mean, she has her priorities in line, as we know that. And this is the craziest thing, okay? He's showing up behind her like like a horror movie, like manifestation of fear or something. Minutes after the woman canceled, she opened her front door to walk her dog, where she claimed she saw Christian Ziegler standing in the hallway outside of her apartment. Can you even imagine that? You open your door in your own apartment building after texting some dude, and he's just like standing there in the hallway like it's a scene in The Shining. She had great instincts not to mess around with this guy. He's crazy. He then proceeded to enter her apartment, where he then allegedly assaulted her. Ziegler's attorney has said he did nothing wrong and will be completely exonerated. With his attorney present, Ziegler told the detectives on the second encounter was consensual and that he recorded it. He recorded the whole thing. So he either did it without her knowledge or with her knowledge, and then just did it when he was committing the crime and then deleted it. He said he deleted it, but then he uploaded it again to his Google Drive after learning about the allegations. Police said in the affidavit they have not been given the video that he said that he has to give them. I'm gonna be honest with you. After all of this came out and he still hasn't handed over the video, it's either not real or it's not as exonerating as he makes it, as he wants it to be. That's just my opinion at the moment. Things can change, but so far it's really not looking good for him. At least he's a dumb fucking idiot if this is true. He's a big dummy doodle head. According to the affidavit, the victim called her sister after the alleged assault and went to Sarasota Memorial Hospital, where an assault kit was performed. The alleged assault was reported to the police 2 days after the encounter on the 4th. Audio of a 911 call from that day reveals that a friend of the victim had asked law enforcement to perform a wellness check on the woman after she reportedly failed to show up to work for 2 days. She hasn't shown up in the last 2 days. When I got off the phone with her, she sounded drunk, and I know she has some pain medication on her, and she told me she doesn't think she can do this anymore. The caller told the dispatcher, according to the 911 call, that was obtained by Florida Trident, a watchdog news outlet that first broke the story, right? And if you're wondering if this goes even further, yes, it actually does. Where the affidavit then talks about a series of messages and phone calls between the two. According to the affidavit, the victim told Ziegler, said that Ziegler liked to contact her through Instagram because he can conceal the messages with vanish mode. In one call, the message that was recorded, the calls were recorded. In one of these calls, the victim expressed to Ziegler that he had hurt her and that she was deeply upset with what happened to her during the encounter. In a separate call, she told Ziegler he directly assaulted her. And then he said, "Yo, those are big words. Please don't." "No, I didn't." Ziegler responded, according to the affidavit. You invited me in. That's it. I did not at all. I never want you to feel that way. Then don't hurt her if you don't want her to feel that way. That's just my personal opinion. That's my personal opinion. So what we know right now is that after saying that she didn't want to have sex with him, he did show up at her house uninvited. He did go into her house right now, and they did have and they had something resembling, and they had intercourse, but one clearly has been saying ever since it happened that it was unconsensual, and he hurt her, and the other ones kept saying that he didn't. But we know now that this situation did happen because these were recorded. I'm not sure if he knew that these calls were recorded, but right now the lady's been able to give her information to the police, and that's where we are right now. So these calls saying that he assaulted her are to the police, but the video that he says completely exonerates him, that he's had a lot of time to be able to give to the police, has not shown nose nor ass to anyone besides his own Google Drive account, I guess. Bro's acting like the Chinese hopping vampire, going from house to house to assault more women, right? Yeah. Right? At the moment, there are no charges against him, but things are looking pretty bad, okay? Things are getting so bad, in fact, that even DeSantis came out to say that he needs to resign from his spot after doing what he did, right? Innocent until proven guilty, but I can't have a party chair that's under this type of scrutiny, he said. And then he said he needs to drop out because the mission to stop Biden and Bidenomics is more important. So we asked him to drop out and resign. He then said the next day, actually the same day, I believe, that he will not actually be resigning, and that he's super innocent and he's going to stay there for as long as it takes, and he's going to drag down the Republican Party in Florida, at least, as he stays, which I'm fine with when it comes to dragging down the party. But I do believe if this is all true, he needs to go to jail. This is the Moms for Liberty party that we're talking about right now. Moms for Liberty hasn't made almost any comment at all about his roles at Moms for Liberty or anything. They haven't said anything about him committing crimes against women. The moms that, moms are usually women. It is pretty true. Nothing along those lines. They're just allowing this to continue and get worse while this man being around several women is clearly a at least possible danger to them and their well-being, while nobody really cares and nobody has taken any strong movements towards him besides saying that he just needs to resign. This is Moms for Liberty. This is the fascist movement in America that's rebranding itself from skinhead to undercut and suit to woman in flats and sundresses. But no matter how it changes, the core of evil in it is the same. And that's why that core of evil will always be taken down by people like us. By this type of work, by letting you know, by doing the work of you going out and starting other movements that contest these people, by telling people not to vote for them, that they're not a real family party. They want to work for a state that controls you, not a family that grows you. That's what it is. All right. And if it wasn't, they wouldn't have to do these type of maneuvers, and they wouldn't have to hide these type of things from you if that was really what they were about. Moms for Liberty, Planned Parenthood, whatever you want to call it, it'll go down the drain in time. But while they're here, they're going to try and cause trouble. That's why it's our job to TOS. I'm joking. That's why it's our job to contest them. That's what we do as progressives. That's what we do. It's not work is never done, isn't it? There's always a new thing to come to be up against. But hey, listen, that means there's always something to do. You never get bored, right? It's never boring. Come here. Oh. Hi. Oh, sorry. I didn't see you there. If you're enjoying the content, hit the subscribe button. If you don't, it'll make Boo very sad. I know a bunch of you who are watching are not subscribed. Join the frenzy. You won't regret it. Thank you, Boo.